Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Okay, so this video is very spontaneous, so bear with me. Doctor Who just announced its air date for Series 14 with a pretty neat trailer. There's not much going on in the clip, but it's nice to see some more shots and I'm excited for the series. However, the trailer isn't the reason I'm making this video. No, what I want to talk about is the release strategy announced alongside the trailer, since it's already very controversial and I have some thoughts about it. It's been announced that Series 14 episodes will drop on iPlayer and Disney Plus simultaneously, which sounds normal like they did with the 60th anniversary. However, the difference this time is that America technically gets it first, with episodes airing around 7 PM and 5 PM based on which half of the country you're in. That means for British people and Europeans, the show comes out at midnight or in the early hours of the morning. I just find that absolutely ridiculous and it kind of spits in the face of the majority of Doctor Who fans. This is a British show, it always has been. The majority of fans are British or Europeans, so it makes no sense to me that Americans now get the comfy evening time slot rather than the people in the actual region of the world the show is made and tailored towards. If they wanted it to release simultaneously, that's fine, but release it at like 6 or 7 PM UK time as usual, with the Americans therefore getting it around like lunchtime or early afternoon, just like they did for the 60th specials. It's basic media understanding to release content when your main audience is able to watch it. I release my videos at 6 PM UK time because that's when my audience is active. I don't publish them in the early hours of the morning when they're all asleep. Yes, they can then watch it later, but chances are they won't be as likely to. I'm a niche, tiny YouTuber, and I still understand the importance of that. I don't want this video to come across like nerd rage or whining because I myself am already pretty used to working with American times, especially on the weekend. I usually end up sleeping at like 5 AM on Saturday and Sunday mornings, so the actual airing time doesn't affect me too much, but I think it takes a lot away from the community and togetherness of the show. Part of the big appeal of Doctor Who is engaging with the community, for better or for worse. It's a show to sit down and watch with your family, but now that's needlessly complicated with this release format. The episodes will still air on BBC One at the expected time, but it reminds me a lot of shows like Game of Thrones, where we'd have it air over here twice, once in the early hours of the morning when the Americans are watching, and then in the post-Watershed evening slot the next day, so if you had work or couldn't watch it until the evening slot, you would have to dodge spoilers all day. But since it was an American show, that's to be expected, there's no issue there. But when you take a British show with a primarily European audience and try that same release strategy, it doesn't work. Sure, the hardcore fans will stay up to watch at midnight along with myself because you know it's basically my job now, but so many fans will now have to just completely disengage from social media communities like Reddit and Twitter because of all the spoilers being posted by the American audiences. And I know, come on, it's a good thing to get off Reddit and Twitter for a while, but not while a marquee TV show is airing, because that's a big part of the appeal, is watching it alongside others. And let's face it, Doctor Who's American audience is significantly smaller than its European audience, like by a huge margin. So this whole thing feels like the show cutting off its nose to spite its face. Even if the episodes are airing simultaneously across the world, it may as well be America getting it first since they have a favourable time slot. They don't have to go out of their way to actually watch it when it drops. And look, I get it, a lot of American fans have been screwed over by the UK broadcast times before, but that's just life when you follow a show made internationally. I've spent the last 14 or so years of my life watching WWE live, even when I was a kid and had to get up for school 3 hours after a pay-per-view ended. That's just the way it is, you know what you're signing up for. I'm glad American fans get to watch Doctor Who in an evening slot like we always have done. But they're not the main fundamental audience the show is aimed at. You know, I've locked up the XL bully and put the little princess to sleep, so now I feel comfortable saying Doctor Who is a British institution for the British. But jokes aside, as friend of the channel Tharies put it, dropping the UK's most famous family show on iPlayer at midnight is a baffling choice. It seems outrageous to eliminate that sense of communal viewing, especially because iPlayer is kind of crap anyway. I know traditional TV is dying, but Doctor Who was one of the few shows still pulling in big numbers over here. But now that audience will be split into 4 categories. You'll have the midnight release viewers, the pre-broadcast viewers, the broadcast viewers, and the post-broadcast viewers. That will cause absolute havoc for the united sense of community, where everyone was previously on the same page. In the entire history of the modern show, you just had the broadcast viewers and the post-broadcast viewers, which was very accessible and easy to build a community around. Because, you know, like I said, people actually like interacting in real time when the show's on, because it feels like everyone's watching it together, but now the majority of the audience can't do that because they'll be asleep. It's part of the enjoyment of shows to have that community and to be talking to people as it's going on. You know, that's actually a kind of an appeal of a show like Doctor Who, which didn't go to streaming services until now. I understand and appreciate the attempt to draw in more American fans, but when the primary audience of a show doesn't even have convenient access to that show upon release, you've made a major mistake. And admittedly, this has actually happened before. When The Five Doctors aired in America 2 days before the UK, I'm sure that was frustrating for British fans at the time, but it was at least pre-internet, so people didn't have to worry about randomly being spoiled on Twitter. That isn't the case anymore, thanks to the internet's global village. So unless you watch at midnight, be ready to be terrified of any human contact online and offline until you finally get to watch the new episode made in your own country. And before you come in with the whole just stay off the internet thing, it's 2024. Good luck with that. Even the papers and news sites will be talking about episodes long before they actually air on BBC One. Another thing I really hate about this idea is them dropping 2 episodes on the same day, with a double premiere approach similar to most of Disney's own streaming shows. This further destabilizes that community because some people will watch both episodes back to back and then spoil things for the fans who haven't even woken up and watched the first part yet. It's such a bad decision in the long run, and a lot of fans, including me, believe this has Disney's influence all over it, with even Russell T Davies liking Instagram comments about it being a bad idea, suggesting he's not too fond of it either, although he just likes all sorts of comments with no rhyme or reason, so who knows. I can't help but feel like this release strategy is one of the early steps of Disney taking over the entire show, starting with decisions like this that make it more American centric and make it more reliant on Disney itself and the American market. It's something I've predicted ever since the partnership was announced, and things like this only reinforce that fear, because Disney is building up more and more leverage for the future, so if the show starts to fail, they can step in and quote-unquote save it by buying it. I've seen some people suggest that this move is actually good for the show, citing shows like The Bad Batch, but I don't understand the logic there. First of all, Bad Batch is part of Star Wars, pretty much the biggest and most lucrative sci-fi franchise of all time, so of course it would be successful regardless of platform or release strategy. And also it's made primarily for an American audience, so its release time does make sense. Doctor Who isn't like that. It won't be like that. I had a lot of people in my Twitter replies saying there's no point complaining because people can watch it whenever, but I think that actually just proves why this decision is so bad. I mean, think about it. If people are going to watch it whenever they want because it's on a streaming platform, why then release it at a primetime slot in America? I want to again point towards the 60th anniversary specials, which aired in the UK and were released on Disney Plus at the same time, but the UK had priority, which makes perfect sense and nobody was complaining. The UK fans, you know, the primary demographic, could watch upon broadcast for the first time, and the American fans could stream it whenever. It shouldn't really be the other way around. And even with the current strategy, it could have been timed better to suit both Europeans and Americans. There are hours in the day where it works for both, rather than being catered specifically for Americans being able to watch in the evenings, and the UK just kind of being an afterthought left at midnight. Something else I really don't like, but very few people are talking about, is the double bill premiere, with episodes 1 and 2 both coming out at the same time. Much like how Russell T Davies wanted Rose and End of the World to air back to back. I've never really liked this, or full season drops in general. I like weekly releases where cliffhangers and fan discussion increases the hype and momentum, building anticipation. But even dropping 2 episodes at once is kind of bad, because Series 14 only has 8 episodes, meaning that's a quarter of the show coming out in a single day. We wait so long for new Doctor Who episodes, or even news, so that's 1 week less of the show, which doesn't sound like much, but it can have a pretty big knock-on effect, and it just continues to cause problems for the community and the sense of togetherness, because that's 1 less week of discussion, speculation, and fan engagement. I've seen some people suggest that the 7-week time span is to avoid clashing badly with the Euros, but Doctor Who has gone up against football loads of times before, and if the show is now being prioritised as a streaming show, broadcast time shouldn't matter anymore, right? And to intercept a few predictable responses, no, nobody is forcing me to watch Doctor Who at midnight. Nobody is forcing me to use social media until the episode is aired on BBC One. But to be brutally honest here, this is my full-time job. I'm very blessed in that regard. I'm incredibly lucky to have a job like this. But this is a change that kind of negatively affects my business. To properly operate my business, I now need to watch at midnight and start working on my reviews of the episodes in the early hours of the morning. Otherwise, I fall behind everyone else and lose business to them. So I understand that this video is admittedly a bit biased and selfish in that regard. I also think it's important to highlight that Doctor Who is funded by the license fee, something only paid by British people. So it does feel a little bit insulting for us to not even have priority over the show we technically pay for. I understand why they've made this whole decision to try and appeal to the widest possible audience, but it really does remove a lot of the celebrated things about Doctor Who, such as its community and the momentum of hype throughout the series. A new Doctor Who episode is like an event. People love coming together to watch it and explore the universe at the same time. Hell, I remember Doctor Who fans making jokes about Countryfile during the Chibnall era because of the scheduling of both shows. Stuff like that simply won't happen anymore because it's instantly available on iPlayer. There's no feeling of hype or build up because you can just wake up on a Saturday morning and go, oh yeah, look, Doctor Who has a new episode. It doesn't feel special anymore and there's less incentive to actually watch it when it comes out. I just really don't like this decision for so many reasons. I know I'll get a lot of negative comments, some more valid than others, but these are just my personal opinions. I personally don't think it's a good or healthy idea for my own personal reasons. I don't like the idea of devaluing Doctor Who to be yet another streaming show prioritising American audiences, because before the American fans step in to say, hey, we've had to deal with terrible hours all our lives, well guess what? That's our lives with all of your shows. This is like the one we had, this is the singular one we had. Like I mentioned earlier, I watched WWE. That means I have to be up at 1 AM almost every week to watch a show. It's ludicrous. And we have that for every American show. It's ridiculous. Shared viewing experiences are so rare these days, and Doctor Who was one of the last bastions of such experiences, so it just disappoints me honestly. But yeah, those are just my thoughts about this big announcement and change. I'm not nerd rage complaining since I'll just get used to it. I don't like the deal, but I'll have to go along with it. Or as they say in German, ich nichten lichten. But what do you think? Do you like this new release schedule or do you hate it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. And I'd just like to quickly thank my Bantam level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patron, Glenna Clark, my Platinum level patrons, Matthew Burns and Maximilian Foreman, and all my Gold level patrons, Daniel Shillito, Franz Orne aka Alarm Vortex, Leigh Marie Farrell, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.